What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Marvel Cinematic University. Is that what we're calling it?
Marvel Chat University.
Whoops, just kidding. This is episode 2. We took a week off. If you're keeping up with us here, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a giant winter storm that decimated most of the United States. And we live in the great state of Texas, which womp womp. I don't know if you've seen the news lately, but it's real tough out here. Luckily, we're fortunate enough to not be in the area where millions of people are out of power and out of water right now. So our hearts go out to those people, but we're just going to keep trucking on. So we appreciate y'all's patience for us to take a knee here for a week and come back with a new episode. But that means that I am your host, Drew, and I'm joined by Raul.
What's up, guys?
And we're going to be talking about 2 episodes of Wanda Vision that we just watched. And then we'll talk a little bit about how we feel like this is going to be rippling out throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe and setting up issues for Phase 4 in general. And kind of what that's going to mean. And then I think we're just going to talk about a bunch of random shit today. So I'm excited. Are you excited?
I'm duly excited.
So coming off of this last episode, there's been a lot of, the first episode that we talked about in this show was probably the biggest punchline episode of the series so far with Pietro. Well, a form of Pietro showing up at the end of that episode. It was kind of like oh my God. But now we've had a couple episodes since then, and we already got hit with another, oh my God, and we're 2 episodes away from the end of the show. So, I mean, this is ramping up really nicely, I think.
It's building up a lot of steam, and if you guys are tuning in and are caught up, Pietro is in the middle of the air. Is he Pietro, the alternate version, or is he disguised as something else?
Right. I think it's interesting. I was watching something kind of recapping this stuff and their perspective on it. And I do think it's interesting that with this most recent episode, the one that was set in the 2000s with all the Modern Family references and stuff, which is hilarious because Community, which is a similar type of show, was developed by the Russo brothers, who are the directors of all the big Marvel movies like the Infinity War and Endgame and stuff like that. So I think it's funny all the call outs, but in this episode, a big B plot of this episode is talking about Vision and kind of poking at what he doesn't know and kind of defining what he doesn't remember or how much he's learning. He gets a bunch of info dump from Darcy, who's in the Hex right now and is just kicking it with Vision. And I think it's funny that even he was Imposta Pietro, and you're okay, so you know that he's fake? How the fuck do you know that? What is this?
How trippy was it to see him disintegrate outside of the barrier
in the Halloween episode? Yes.
Oh man!
So that's the 2 episodes. We're not going to do a full. Hey guys, if you've never watched this before, recap of the whole thing. So we'll just be kind of willy nilly referring to the last 2 episodes. But you're talking about Vision powering his way out of the Hex.
Towards the very end of the previous the last to second episode where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And I was kind of expecting him to turn into a crushed Coke can of sorts. Something like that, just fall to the ground and he's just a dead
in my
shell.
Head when it was, because that's one of the trailer stuff. One of the cinematics is him kind of crawling out of there.
Yeah.
And I always leading up to that when they showed him with his skull crushed in and all that, and I was okay, so that's his default state. And then we learned that she kidnapped his body and brought him back and everything in pieces. So I'm what if he fully detaches from the Hex and just falls apart? But then Sword has him at that point and can reboot him or something. I don't know what the fuck.
And so if he, and I think that's a big hanging question in the air is if Sword does take him back, is he the fun-loving Vision that has Jarvis programming built in, or is he now this just sentient weapon, just dry and cold, and he's just I'm here to do a mission, I'm here to complete a task, or I'm here to protect, or whatever task they may have him doing.
Right. I love... One of the things I love about the Marvel Cinematic Universe specifically, and I was thinking about this before we started the show as a whole, one of the best things about being this type of nerd is the people who create the type of stuff that we love to consume know that we comb over every little detail and we obsess over every line of every book and every, it's a lot of fun. That's the kind of the the lore of it is something that you can, reinterpret and put into new context. And I love how much these movies, especially, because if anybody thinks about Hollywood, usually it's like, oh, well, these guys are just doing for the flashy, garbage, let's just, how do we sell tickets type stuff. But I think these people really care about this stuff, and they pour so much attention to detail into every single scene. And I just love how what seemingly throwaway conversations or lines can turn into this big thing.
Yes.
The little conversations between Black Widow and Hawkeye are now like huge question marks for that movie. Like, oh, are we going to see this place? And are we going to see that thing that they talked about that one time or whatever, like 15 years ago now and stuff. And so when Bruce is telling Vision in Infinity War, there's a lot of you left if we take out the Infinity Stone, which, like, seriously, at no point, how the fuck has nobody been like, so does he have an Infinity Stone in his forehead, or what's going on here? Like, I mean, has nobody, like, talked about that yet?
No, I have not.
I don't understand how they haven't
said,
talk about
did
that. She recreate the fucking Mind Stone? It's not just a Rolls-Royce emblem on this forehead here, man. That's like an Infinity Stone. So I gotta assume that it's a fake Infinity Stone of some sort, or a Finfinity Stone. But if it's not, and that you take that away, then that right there proves that Vision is more than just the Infinity Stone. So if he loses himself in the process of this movie, if they may, or in the show, if they maybe have a backup of him or something.
I think it builds to like this beautiful arc if they continue down this path of, he is actually Vision without the Mind Stone, and he's that great, fun-loving character that we know and love. And now he's about to get into murky waters with S.W.O.R.D, trying to take him over as a weapon. And we really see his arc expand and then set up for future movies where maybe the team's trying to pull him back to our side, right? Because he's now this weapon that might be working against the Avengers versus him just being the guy we know today. I mean, I feel like... So, like, if he becomes like a Winter Soldier type situation.
Absolutely. Reprogrammed.
Because if you really try to stick him as the Vision we know in the movie that's being set up after Wanda Vision, which is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
What is he? How does he play a role in that? Right, unless he is at the time being taken by S.W.O.R.D and reprogrammed as this weapon. And okay, we understand that that's going on and that's a big deal, but it's kind of on the back burner front right now because of all this other good stuff that's being set up. Right.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting, and I really do hope it does go towards that route, because if we're just able to keep Vision whole without the Mind Stone, I don't really see him growing in the movie that we're about to jump into after WandaVision. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think his... I'd love to... I can go on and on about this. I think his fate is, to me, one of the biggest question marks that, like, when you want to talk about an elephant in the room, this is like a Hulk in the room of just, like, what the fuck is going to happen with Vision after this show is over. Yeah. We've got ideas, and we can talk about, where we think the show is kind of telegraphing it's going, and we have enough context clues from, knowing Marvel's slate and everything, and understanding what we know about Multiverse of Madness, for example, so far. And we know that there's no Vision show or Vision movie, or, Paul Bettany hasn't been confirmed to be the cast of, like, the Eternals or whatever shit that's coming up in the future. So the big question is, like, okay, so where does this leave him? Like, that's, to me, that's such a question mark.
Yeah.
Because with everybody else, we could wrap this all up in this show. But, like, you don't just walk away from Vision after bringing him back for this show, right? Or do you? And that's, to me, like, really dark. It could be really cool.
Absolutely.
And speaking of dark, I really want to talk about the kids.
The kids and Pietro, where the heck are they, man?
Well, Pietro we saw... Did you watch the end credit stuff?
I did.
Okay, so Pietro is, like, around, which is cool. And I actually saw some theories that maybe he was showing up to help. Like, he comes across as, like, ominous.
So do you
that he
think
snuck
that
up on her?
Pietro... Okay, Agatha, she calls upon another dimension, pulls the Quicksilver... that we know.
Does Fox Quicksilver?
Yeah, the Fox Quicksilver, and brings him in, right? And while he's there, he's figuring things out. He's kind of realizing a few things, and then does it begin to help? Or do you think Pietro's actually somebody else, like Mephisto or Nightmare?
I think Pietro not actually being Pietro is a pretty high probability. and I don't think that he's like here to help.
Yeah.
So here's my dig. This is what I think could be a thing that happens. So the end of this most recent episode, where we have everybody is Wanda has been captured by Agnes Agnes? Agnes is Agatha Harkness.
Mm-hmm.
So Agnes has Wanda under her house after killing the cat for some reason, or the dog.
Which, by the way, the build up and like her walking down the base, like to the
I was
basement.
so stoked.
Oh man!
And I had
what
no
beautiful
clue.
attention to detail in that dungeon of basements. Of
I had
sorts.
no clue how close we were to the end, so I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh shit, here we go!" And then it was over, and I was like, "Oh, whoops!"
I
just
literally
never mind.
paused the TV a few times just to kind of like take in all the stuff in the background. It
details.
was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful little layer of sorts, and we saw a lot of stuff.
But what's interesting to me about where everybody's at is Agatha has Wanda, which is no small feat. So that right there should tell you. Like, she has the Scarlet Witch like kidnapped against her will, which we knew all along, but like clearly that was a moment where Wanda could have been like, what the fuck? And like just blown that place up, and she didn't because she couldn't, because she's under her control. So then at the same time, Spectrum or damn, I already forgot Spectrum's actual name.
Rambeau or
Monica. So Monica was like sneaking up because she came in to. She just like bossed her way into the fucking hex.
and
became
micro level biology being rewritten for what, the third time?
Basically mutated. I'm just saying a little bit there.
Might have some mutant genes in her now. We're not too sure.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the history of Spectrum herself to claim whether or not she's a mutant. So the only mutant I know for a fact, other than Wanda, is Pietro. And so, but she's there and she's at the house and she's looking down in the basement to try to like see what the fuck's going on. So Pietro shows up. I think we're gonna start the next episode with a like Scooby-Doo-esque of like the two of them are captured and being cackled at by the bad guy, and so who's got to come save her?
I see like a mini
Vision
standoff.
and Darcy are going to come try to save her. You know what I mean?
I see a little standoff between Pietro and Spectrum if Pietro is on the dark side.
Maybe.
Right? Maybe trying to like
so maybe he has to
redirect.
reveal that he's more than just Quicksilver to be standing up against. No, you're absolutely right.
So that might be interesting to see. But you know, here's something interesting. What did you think of the conversation between the kids and Agatha right before she brings Wanda into the house, where she looks at the boy and she states to him, "You know, you've been kind of quiet. What do you think?"
Yeah.
Right? Like, what do you think about what? And who are these kids? And where did they go? Because as soon as she has that conversation with them, then they're gone. And then she comes up, gets Wanda, she brings her to the basement.
So that's actually a good point, because that kind of tickles at what I'm talking about with what I think might be going or could be going, or I kind of want to be going on with the kids. First of all, I'm biased. I fucking hate children in movies and TV shows. I just cannot stand it. Stranger Things is the one exception, and then next to that is maybe the movie Stand By Me and Sandlot, and that's about it. Okay, Home Alone. All right, I got a couple. But listen, if your show has some kids in it that are just kind of there, fuck off. Get rid of these kids. Send them to grandma's. Put them on the cruise ship away from here. So in the comic books, the kids are revealed. The original children that she has are revealed to be literally Mephisto's hands.
Yes.
Like, they're not real. And it was also explained that like when she's not thinking about them, they don't exist.
Yeah.
They're not around. So like when other people are looking for them or whatever, they're like, where the fuck are the kids? And she's like, ooh, the kids? And then the kids would come around the room. And you're like, oh, there they are. How convenient. You know what I mean? Where the fuck were they? So what's interesting though is that scene that we see is Agnes interacting with the kids with Wanda not around, which Agnes was... I read about that too. Agnes was Franklin Richards, whom we'll talk about someday, but Jesus Christ. But Franklin Richards' babysitter. So if she can handle powerful people, she can handle like... Franklin Richards is one of the most powerful beings in the history of comic books.
So these two little pesquies are nothing.
So, but she's talking to them, so that makes me wonder if maybe my theory of them not being real might not be true. Yeah. Maybe they are real.
In one of the canons in the comics that I was reading about Wanda Vision, apparently those two kids are part of Mephisto's soul, and that they're created using crystal shards.
Yeah,
now,
I heard about that.
Either way, those kids being gone, and if Wanda realizes that those two are just a figment of her imagination created by Agatha, we're going to see a big showdown.
Yeah.
Which I'm very excited for.
And that's the thing. I think that the amount of manipulation that has happened against Wanda, obviously throughout the whole MCU, that's kind of there's a pretty strong perspective and theme when it comes to female superheroes and characters throughout the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe of how much women are manipulated in society and stuff like that, and then how it can cause them to, build up different types of reactions to it. And I think this is a great example of she's got her dead brother resurrected, whom she when they were talking to each other, I think she understood that because she was like, how are you? You're not you. You know what I mean? He's like, I don't know what the fuck's going on, right? And she tested him. She was like, do you remember that time? And he was like, yeah, you're trying to test me. And it's like, so I think she understands that maybe that's not actually him, but still, it's emotionally manipulative for him to even be there. And then on top of that, have these two kids, and then what could happen of that? And then on top of that, Vision is around. So what if Vision, Pietro, and her kids all get ripped away from her at the end of this? That could make someone go mad. Yep. And I think that's, to me, coming into this show, when we first start learning what is this? Oh, she's trapped in a show. Oh no, she's making the show. Oh no, it's a whole actual reality that she's distorting, and she's kidnapped all these people. What the fuck is all this? And then when we started learning that it was somebody else and everything, that doesn't diminish the fact that she is clearly damaged. Yes. And the whole purpose of this series is to show how much she is going through emotionally, and I think at the end of it, that's how Marvel can justify taking what they started off as a bad guy, and then they're like, no, she's actually really good, and then they were like, but she's been fucked up, and
she started off bad, she turns good, and then she's a little too good and can't really control her power, so let's babysit her, let's let Vision babysit her and watch her, and everybody kind of keeps her locked up, and that was kind of, out of all the characters, she's been that one character that always needs a babysitter, that people are a little scared of. There's an anti-Wanda sentiment of sorts, and now add everything else on.
And you've got really specific people that made impacts on Wanda throughout the series, like Captain America, and Hawkeye. I think her and Hawkeye had a connection at the end of Endgame because they both lost their people as a result of Endgame. That aren't around. They're not around to connect with her. So she's surrounded by when you have someone who is trying to connect with her, Monica. Monica's over here I feel you, girl. And she's like, I don't know who the fuck you are. Get away from me. You have no clue what I've been through. You were blipped. You don't know what the fuck I've been through. You weren't here for that shit. So I don't know. I think it's a really dark way. So I'm actually a little hesitant to believe that Disney will do this, but I want the kids to be fake. I want Vision to be done. You know what I mean? At least for a while. And then I want Pietro to be fucking Mephisto or something. Absolutely. Where it's not like this, because I think this would be another epic fake out. Just like Far From Home. I ate Far From Home up from start to finish. When I saw the trailer, I was like, damn, they're really putting a lot of information out here quick. And I was like, are we really just doing this? We're doing the multiverse? Oh shit, here we go. We're doing the multiverse. And then they're like, just kidding. It's not real. And you're like, oh shit, is it not real though? And then they kind of slip it in with Into the Spider-Verse, which was a Sony thing. But I think it would be really cool if the end of this is not he's not the Fox. He just looks like him. You know what I mean?
It's Mephisto or Nightmare setting up for the next movie.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I don't want Pietro to be the brother. I don't want the kids to be real.
Right.
And I want that to set up Wanda to get to a breaking point where maybe she takes care of Agatha, but that sets up for an even bigger villain, but we still have to get over the Wanda hurdle of her going batshit crazy after this. Now, another really cool detail of when Agatha was walking Wanda down was the rabbit. And its name.
Sir Scratchy.
Sir Scratchy. That is her son's real name in the comics.
Scratchy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I heard about that when they first introduced him in the Magician episode. They were everybody thought from the start, if her name is Agnes and she wears stuff, and they're like, is she Agatha Harkness? And then for that to be kind of like people assuming that, I had heard when she said Sir Scratchy, they were like, is this just a nod to like her son, and like did she turn him into a rabbit or whatever? And then I thought that was going to be the end of that, and then for him to keep coming back in other episodes, and then now for her to be like holding him the way that in the comic book she's very specifically holds her cat.
Yes.
That is her familiar or whatever.
I'd love to see where they're going to go with that. Whether or not that's her actual son, or how they're going to explain that's going to be very interesting to see roll out. Another really cool attention to detail whenever she's walking down is the book, right? The book of spells. I mean, at least that's what I can garnish from the comics and stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on in there.
There's a lot of theories about that book, and that is another... So if this book is even remotely what some of the theories are, it's just another really, really, really good example of the team at Marvel looking at just scene by scene of the last 23 movies or 22 movies of the last like decade or so, and be like, there's that one scene where we have X amount of books on this screen and there's one missing, and so we can just make it that book. You know what I mean? Like what the fuck? Was that a fucking plan from the start? Like how the fuck? You can't go back and just be like, just kidding, we CGI'd this guy in this scene one time, and now when you watch it on Disney Plus, he's there. Yeah. You know what I mean? So now we can use that. Like, I mean, I wouldn't put it past Disney to do that, but they don't even have to do that. They can just go back and be like, hey, remember the barf thing in Iron Man and how stupid that was? Let's just make an entire bad guy in the Spider-Man movie just based around that. Like, how fucking obscure, and then just like CGI and fucking, oh man, I love this detail stuff. So the reference that I've heard is there's two things. There's a specific book, The Dark All or something like that. I don't remember what the hell it's called from the comics that people think it is. And then there's another reference to this Doctor Strange thing where there's a scene where he's looking at the like special books, the books that you aren't allowed to touch or whatever. And there's a scene where Wong, I think, is like putting a book away and there's an empty slot next to it. And so it's like, where is that book? And this is the book, is like the assumption. So then the other thought would be that this book was one of those books and it was taken during Endgame or whatever, which I think it's interesting that if they wanted to, they could be like, and then when all the hullabaloo of the world, the end of the world was happening, this happened. And so they can just like be like, this happened during the blip. You know what I mean? Like this entire enemy organization was created during the blip or whatever. Like they can mine that stuff. I think
there's going to be a big impact of what that book really is, because the pause they had on the book was a good sizable pause. They really
zoomed in on that thing.
And the thing that I had heard was the book of spells. Like that's what it's supposed to be. It's the book of spells before books were even created or a thing. This book was created. The concept that I was hearing was like, because of the way that her lair is like seeping into the ground, is that book is what's keeping the hex up. Yeah. Or, you know what I mean? Or it's like the source of power or whatever. Or a source of power.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and I don't know.
Let's fast. So we have 2 episodes left. There was a lot to unpack in fine details, but overall the story is pretty simple if you don't know too much about Marvel.
Between the 2 episodes or this most recent
between
episode?
Both.
Okay, yeah.
Between both, from like the perspective of an outside viewer maybe who doesn't know a whole lot. They're just going along for the ride, and there's nothing too complicated up to this point.
Sure.
Where do we see it going in the next 2 episodes?
So this is not as nerdy as kind of the tenor of most of our conversations, but one thing that generally perplexes me is, when they started the Modern Family motif, I was like, oh, okay, that's how they did that. The 90s thing with the Full House, and the 90s thing of having like the Malcolm in the Middle vibes, and now they've done this like Modern Family thing. And they had a lot of Office vibes in this episode, with the fourth wall breaking, like looking at the camera and shit. And I was like, this is really weird. This is so weird. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that, but I honestly think that like they blow through some of this stuff so much because they are finally like developing the show that it's so rewatchable. It feels so rewatchable. I can't wait to go back and rewatch the show. Yeah. I've been stopping myself from restarting the show every week and watching all the episodes because I can't wait to just watch it as a one thing, because it's got to feel so crazy to watch, where it's all this like not a lot happens. You know, everything like, now it's over. You know what I mean? But so much detail is in there, and it's so deep, and you can look at all these little references and know all this stuff. It's really cool. But
so we're at what? We're in the early 2000s with that last episode, right?
Yeah. So like what the
early
fuck
mid
do
2000s?
Yeah.
What do the late 2000s look like? Is it just all about social media, like the kids? Or I don't know. But it's interesting, right? Because we have a lot going on. But are they going to still try to put some of that stuff in there?
If they wanted to get, so we have. I don't think we've seen too many scenes past this season. So we saw in trailers leading up to it. We saw the Halloween stuff really early on, so it took all the way until now to see that. And then we saw little snippets of her like fourth wall breaking and like Modern Family like setup look and everything. So we've seen that stuff, but I don't think we've seen a whole lot of scenes past this in like brief flashes or whatever. And there are a couple scenes I've on Instagram, I've seen a couple shots of like the Mind Stone and like her face, like, oh my God, and stuff like that. And it's like, can't wait to see this scene. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? I don't even, where'd you make that? Like, but I wonder if it either goes one way where it does something that we didn't even see coming. Like, how fun would it be to be like a
complete misdirection?
Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad. Like, think about great television in the last few years. I mean, you can't not think about Game of Thrones. You can't not think about like Breaking Bad or even, I don't know, like just some type of TV series that's been, because I almost started thinking about like reality TV shows.
Yep.
And I was like, I wonder if they do like a reality TV thing. When they were going to do the 2000s, I was really nervous it was going to be like a Jersey Shore thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, okay, good, they didn't do that. But like, I'm curious if they lean into it and do something really fucking weird for this second to last episode, or if this next episode and the last episode are just straight, okay, show's over, guys.
Yeah.
Because at the end of this most recent episode, when she starts walking down, now if you go back and watch this show, you'll notice the aspect ratio changes to signify whether or not you're in the TV show or if you're in the real world.
Yes.
So when she starts walking down the stairs, the aspect ratio changes when she goes into there to be like, okay, we're not in the show anymore. This is happening. And this is completely outside of script, quote unquote. So I wonder if everything after this stays that way.
It's quite a task.
The holdup is over. You know,
it's quite a task because with the confirmation that Doctor Strange movie is going to be the first horror film in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, because New Mutants suck. Fuck that shit. It doesn't count.
It was not very good. They have a lot of work to do to set that up in these next two to kind of give us a good lead into that movie.
Well, I mean, they've got a nice little start of that transition.
But
of
even,
like, whoa,
the problem with this
what is
the ending of this last episode with Agatha, that actress is best known for her comedy work. So with having her like. And I love her. I do love the character because it's like this evil, funny, cool character.
Yeah.
But I do want to see her take like on a really dark side because me knowing that character, when most everybody knows that character from all her comedic roles, she's played some serious roles, but I've known her more as a lighthearted one. So I really need her to become dark to set the stage because from what I've heard, it has to get pretty.
Ozark.
I have not seen that show.
I'm mixing her up with
I
someone
know her
else because
from
the woman in Ozark is blonde, and I don't think she's like fake blonde. I think she's real blonde.
She's in the movie Revolutionary Road, which is fantastic. I remember her off of that one in a more serious role.
I feel like I saw her in Nip Tuck at one point. Nip Tuck is like an older HBO show.
She's in Step Brothers.
Well, yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah. She's definitely super comedic.
Yeah,
but I'm glad you mentioned her other roles because I love the dig that people realize she is the voice of Doc Ock in Into the Spider-Verse, and her character from the start you think is a good character, and then she very quickly does a turn and is like, I'm Doc Ock, and you're like, holy shit, this is Dr. Octavius. Like, you know, you're like, this is a female Doc Ock, this is crazy. And that's she's done a really, really, really good job.
Yes.
What did you think of the, like, it was Agatha all along, like, little, like,
it's pretty expected.
But like the video, the like little thing that they did at the end of the stinger.
I thought it was fantastic.
That was great.
Her just like throwing in all those little,
I'm
gonna mess your world up, and that was fantastic.
Being behind the camera when she was like, you can't ask that, and then like turns out it was her back there the whole time. You're like, what the fuck? Directing the Modern Family stuff.
That was a real strange. When it got to how deep that it got on that scene where she was just like, you know, talking to the camera, even though she was a narrating voice.
Yes.
And, like the producer of the show, I'm just like, oh man.
It's fucking
Well, let
weird.
me ask you this: do you really think she is? I still think that Wanda has like a good 80% foothold on like what's going on, and she's got a strong 20 to 30% maybe. Like she's
like creation wise,
yeah,
like
creation wise, the reality.
So she can.
I think it's Wanda's baby, but she's in there just causing a muck.
I think back to that footage, the super classic MCU grainy security footage of Wanda breaking Vision's body out of Sword, and just thinking about that and being like, okay, how drunk was she when she did that? Like, she clearly didn't just walk in and do that, right?
I can see her doing it.
Because, I mean, so think about the time in between there. I get it that Wanda was blipped. Mm-hmm. So I get it that Wanda wasn't around from the moment Vision's body fell to the ground and half the population, you know, how did Vision's body get from fucking Wakanda? He was in Wakanda. He wasn't just down the street in New York. How did he get from Wakanda to Sword? How did that happen? Who made that happen? And then, like, my question about the breakout is, so did Agatha target and trap Wanda and then manipulate Wanda into getting Vision's body out and bringing it to the Hex? And so then my question is, was the Hex created originally by Agatha or by Wanda? You know what I mean? Because like there's so much little details that Wanda controls. We haven't even talked about how like this whole last episode, the entire episode, Wanda was trying to just get away from it all, and like she was losing control, not just on the edge of the glitch, which is funny because on the edge of the glitch, what was happening? An entire fucking circus was going on.
Which how does that fit into
the previous episode? The fucking people were standing around in a cul-de-sac and couldn't even blink. They were crying. You know what I mean? Like, how the hell? So yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that doesn't add up here, and I am curious to find out how much of this was Agatha, how much of this is Mephisto. Maybe he's the thing that fills in all the gaps. You know, we get it like it was Mephisto all along at the end of the next episode.
Now, on that note, so Paul Bettany was in an interview talking about how
yes,
you know,
someone
up until now, a lot of
whatever.
people have guessed like who's going to be coming on the show and what characters are going to play, all this, that, and the other. And he said, you know, there's one guy he's always longed to work with, and that he's going to be part of the show. So, Al Pacino playing Mephisto.
Are you making a devil's advocate reference?
Yes. I could see that. I could easily see Al Pacino, and that would be fantastic.
Yes.
Oh man, it's just
but Al
chills thinking about
Pacino's too old and he sucks now. So.
But with that CGI, making him young like they did Robert De Niro,
Sure,
they could,
de-aging.
they could figure out something that looks palatable.
You know, when you were saying, because I haven't been like putting a lot of effort into this, but when I think about it, I'm like, man, who's been around like all of Paul Bettany's life or whatever?
Yeah.
Paul Bettany is English, and so a lot of people are like, that's the ticket. So it's got to be like a Michael Caine or somebody. And I feel like I know this. Has Anthony Hopkins been in the MCU yet?
I don't think so.
Hannibal? What if it was him? What if it was Hannibal? What if it's because I think Anthony Hopkins is menacing enough, and
he's menacing. He's
and
terrifying.
has
He can be
a presence
terrifying guy.
enough, but because for Paul Bettany to be like, this is somebody I've wanted to work with my whole life. Like that's the thing that everybody keeps keying on. Paul Bettany's not old, but he's not he's not Tom Holland. You know, he's not a kid. So maybe it's somebody he's looked up to his whole life. But I just wonder if maybe we're stretching that out, and maybe
I think
it's
we're stretching it out because Al
Keanu
Pacino
Reeves or something.
Al Pacino has been in talks with Marvel about playing a character. So that's why I lean heavily towards that route. Now, if they really just surprised us, I would love to see Anthony Hopkins. He's been in a ton of horror movies that I love, and he's a terrifying individual when he wants to be.
He's also due for a good role. He hasn't had one in a minute. He hasn't had like a good role in a minute.
There's some like cult horror movies that he's
of
fantastic.
course. I just mean recently.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean like in the last like 10, 15
I
years.
would love that. That turn for me would be huge.
Yeah, I think that could be a cool get to have as like this just like menacing fucking evil old Satan guy. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
I think that would be a good fit.
I'm trying to picture Al Pacino in that role, but now that you mentioned Anthony Hopkins, I'm like, oh man, like he just wanted to do
the thing that
justice
worked
compared to
about
Anthony.
Pacino in Devil's Advocate is because Pacino was a really good fit for the type of character they were trying to make the devil be at the time. That 90s slick, like Michael Sheen, Wolf of Wall Street guy, right? Like the power, what was it, The Color of Money? No, what the fuck was the... Wall Street. It was just called Wall Street. Like his Wall Street character. Like it was that 90s fucking evil business guy.
Slam bag.
But if you're just trying to think of this dude's Satan. Like I'm looking at him and he's totally Satan. Like if anybody watches Rick and Morty, when he goes into the old man, he's like, well, all right, got a bunch of stuff in here. You're Satan, right? And the guy's like, what? No. You're totally Lucifer. What are you talking about? Look at you.
Like, let me ask you this. So could you see Robert De Niro possibly?
I was waiting for you to say De Niro, and I was going to slap you across this fucking table.
So
De Niro has completely shot his balls off with the fucking movies he's made the last 15 years.
I agree.
Stay the fuck away from me. Like, that's what I say to De Niro.
Step in and just ruin it.
Yeah, I don't care. I didn't see Kill the Irishman. I'm sure it's a good movie. I don't care. It's like watching ghosts reenact a movie that you wanted to watch 30 years ago, and they're all dead now.
Yeah.
I thought about that. As soon as you said Pacino, you can't say Pacino without thinking De Niro.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's Joe Pesci, right?
I don't know. It's a big role. I really do hope they surprise us. I would like to see a surprise. I would not like to see Al Pacino just because that's the big theory out there and it's coming from reputable sources and whatnot. It really is.
Okay.
From what I've been hearing, tracing that trail down.
I have not heard that. I actually haven't heard who the fuck Mephisto is going to be from anybody.
Really?
Like, yeah, I haven't heard any kind of like, and we all know it's probably going to be Jake Gyllenhaal again, right?
Could this
like,
be a good misdirection for Nightmare?
So, all right, so I don't know shit about Nightmare. I don't know why. Every time you say Nightmare, I'm like, on Elm Street? Like, I don't know who, I don't know why.
You're on the right.
I can't think of the difference.
You're on the right path.
So
Nightmare is like a Freddy Krueger of sorts.
Is Nightmare a...
he's a demon.
But is he a Mephisto, like, homie? Like, is he a crony of Mephisto? Okay, gotcha.
He is. And so, I could
do?
see maybe possibly setting up Nightmare, and how cool would that be to have Keanu play Nightmare, playing this, like, Keanu-looking guy, but into the demon realm that terrorizes people while they sleep.
So is that his situation? He just walks around looking like a normal-ass creepy dude?
Yeah, he does have a Keanu Reeves vibe going on. He's a demon, but he's very human-like.
Keanu's so
like
fucking hot that I almost don't believe that he's not in the MCU already.
Absolutely. Like, this
is going to be another one of those, hey, remember when Iron Man, like, flicked a cigarette at this guy one time? That was Keanu Reeves. Like, oh shit, he's in this new movie now. But
he's supposed to also be Doctor Strange's, like, arch enemy in the comics.
One of
them.
The
one
fucking
of the big villains.
Matrix is coming out this year, so I mean, if Keanu's going to have a big year again, this could be a good one. I would
love to see that.
I will only throw a wrench in all of this with the thing that people keep forgetting, because a lot of people forget actually watching the end of the last Doctor Strange movie, because much like, and we'll talk about teasers for probably the next episode, shit that has been left on the table for almost a decade now from previous movies that you're like, hey, where is Adam Warlock? What's going on here? Like, you know what I mean? From previous movies. But the end of Doctor Strange is Baron Mordo being like, there's too many wizards. Sorcerers. Yeah. Thank you. I was going to say too many cooks. No.
Too many Harry Potters.
Yes. Too many Harry Potters. Let's kill Johnny Depp.
It only makes sense for him to come back and play a significant or insignificant role.
I'm curious. You would assume he's got to be big bad in the next Doctor Strange movie just because of how they left it in the first movie.
Right?
You have to assume that that's a thing.
But then I would be like, you're deflating the entire build up to this movie with him.
So then I wonder if maybe they do a reverse heel turn of, like, at the beginning of the movie, he's a big bad, and then Doctor Strange's like, you're an idiot. Yeah. And then you gotta get the undo.
Puts him in place.
Yeah, you get the undo, the very quick, like, hey man, there's bigger shit going on than you're like, I don't like the world today. I'm fucking Alanis Morissette over here.
Because he's got the magical boots, right?
Yes.
And
yeah, he does have those.
He's got the magical.
Thanks for reminding me of those.
Just real cheesy.
So
with
corny.
Magical boots. Yeah, absolutely. What else does he have?
He's got that stick.
He has a stick, right? The magical boots and the stick.
Yep. But I think the implication was, so do a Heroes call out, because R.I.P. fucking Heroes. I really missed that show. Anyways, so he had this, like, Siler, right? Yeah, this, like, Siler vibe going on at the end of that movie. He took the magic from that guy's body, just like straight absorbed it. Like, you don't deserve this anymore. Took it out of him. The guy's just left crippled, laying in his like fucking RIP to that guy. And so it's like the implication is that he's gonna go around and just find magic throughout the world and suck it up and take it. So
he could be knocking on a door he can't knock down.
Sure.
Which could lead us into the connection between the Scarlet Witch or Agatha, even possibly. I don't know. It's a lot to speculate.
Well,
with him.
The one thing that I think this show is doing well is wrapping this up quickly.
Yes.
So they've talked about,
which is a phenomenal feat, by the way.
The timeline of this show is like all done over the course of like a week, right?
Yeah.
It is big enough because so the question is, how does Doctor Strange show up? Well, obviously, if Doctor Strange can just show up when Loki is like fucking hamming it up with Thor in fucking Thor Ragnarok, then clearly Doctor Strange should notice when there's a giant fucking hex over half of New Jersey. He's gonna show up and be like, what's all this then, eh? And just like, what the fuck, what are you doing over here? And I wonder if that would also attract Baron Mordo, and so that's where you get the, like, maybe at the beginning of the show, or at the beginning of the movie, them being like, what the fuck? And then just being like, oh, this is a bigger thing. We need to be buddies again. Absolutely. Because they were like rivals, and then they were like good guys. And
they could play that out to be pretty spectacular, I think. Disney could handle that. I like that because there's a lot of magical energy going on, especially Strange steps in.
It could be the opener, of the show. Of just like the two of them fucking duking it out.
But I do need like a very dark introduction to the next movie. I want them to do it justice. I don't want them to go Disney. Movie. Yeah, I don't want them to go Disney, especially with the director. I want it to be dark. I want it to be done well, very clever, which I know they can do.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I am just really excited to see where these next two episodes go. And they're supposed to be a little longer, right?
The next two episodes are an hour long.
Fantastic.
They have to be, so they're an hour long. Now, the big criticism about this episode was it looked like it was super long, and then it turned out to be because it had two fucking end credit sequences. So you're like, oh, all right, never mind. But I think that the next two episodes will be a movie, basically. And so my expectations are pretty high, but they're not on the level of, I've kind of toned down the like, and then what if Reed Richards? So
they keep on referencing the engineer as well. I've heard that all over the place.
You saw the engineer. That was a bunch of people in army uniforms. You're like, oh. So the like, what's this then? Like this show has done a good job of being like, oh shit. And that was like the reverse of that, where it was like, oh, all right, we're going to go meet her friends. And it was just a bunch of army guys. And you're like, oh, screw that. The rumor is that they're all Skrulls. That those are all Skrulls.
Okay.
And that one of them is like her homie from when they were kids. Like the other like child Skrull from when they... So that would make sense.
That would make sense.
That would make sense because like how the fuck did they just show up and didn't trigger a sword going like, hey, whoa, what's this over here?
How phenomenal, right? Disney's use of the Skrulls. I know. It's Spider-Man. If that happens to be the case in this movie, Ed is just phenomenal, man.
Honestly, phenomenal. So there's already been confirmed that there won't be a like Avengers-style team-up movie in Phase 4. That's not happening. Yeah. So I think the setup in Phase 4 has to be Secret Wars. I think it's just like in the background, coming along, and maybe it has nothing to do with the actual stories of the movies in Phase 4, but I think we're setting up Secret Wars, and I think Secret Wars could maybe introduce Fantastic Four and X-Men, but the result of that could bring them in.
Because we're gonna need to introduce the mutants in a very powerful way.
Yeah,
the Fantastic Four, those two are gonna need to clash and cross over. What's really upsetting to me is that I was really wanting to see a Black Panther and Storm romance build up. I know it's Chad Boseman.
So I really believe the hype behind the idea of Shuri being the next Black Panther, so I want to believe that that's the direction they go in. I like this like alternative X-Men or alternative Avengers concept of like, hey, we're going to pull all the... Like, we threw all the big names at you. Now we're going to make you care about people you didn't think you would care about.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, while we're making you care about people you didn't think we were going to care about, also here's the X-Men and Fantastic... Like, because... You wouldn't want this whole sequence after the Infinity Saga to feel, at least from the layman's side, of like, man, they really fucking ran out of people, didn't they? Now we got all these Doctor Strange and Miss Marvel. Who cares about that? She-Hulk? I don't even know who the fuck. Why is there? It's like, some Okay, so think about this. She-Hulk trailers come out. Some fucking right-wing guy somewhere is like, why'd they have to go and make the Hulk a woman? They don't know that it's a totally different character.
They were only living.
But but I think that you have all this great opportunity to introduce all these not normal characters like fucking Mighty Thor. You have Jane Foster as Thor in the next movie and stuff. And then that is covered by and then here's Wolverine near the end of everything.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
There's a tremendous amount of pressure on Feige, those teams up there, to beautifully execute these next movies very well, because there is a lot of stuff going on. And it sucks for people who are more invested, because in the comics it's a shit show. I mean, you got different canons going on, you got different storylines, you got this, that, and the other, and in the movie we're trying to pull influences to see where we're going with everything, and they're able to pick and choose these beautiful things to bring into it to lead us on these wild goose chases, and then they're like, well, we're actually going down this route, misdirection, we're going here. So they're doing a beautiful job of crafting the entertainment that we're consuming, and man, that pressure's got to be insane.
Meanwhile, Activision really missed the mark on that Avengers game that came out this past year. I don't know how the fuck, dude. It's so bad. It's gotta
be if it's half off on the PlayStation Store.
It's
already.
So, are you familiar with the game Anthem?
Yes.
Okay, so imagine. So you remember the hype around Anthem and the fucking womp womp wet fart of Anthem. Mm-hmm. That's what happened with this game.
It made me not even want to put it on. Just had all the backlash.
Don't do it.
I didn't put it on. I was like,
I
got it for $10 by the way too. Shortly out, it was.
I was gonna say wait until it's free on Game Pass and then go back and play it 6 months after it gets on Game Pass.
Yeah.
Don't even jump on it right away.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
It's really disappointing because you're absolutely right that they have the hype's pretty up there, and I think they've done a really good job of starting things off with something fucking weird. That's honestly the fact that Wanda Vision launched as opposed to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, mm-hmm. which already feels like a much more traditional, comic book guy thing.
Absolutely.
Which I'm excited to see what they do with it, but for them to start with, look at this weird fucking thing. I love that about this, and Feige is now the head of all things Marvel. Not just the Marvel Cinematic Universe and not just Marvel Studios. So now having someone from the MCU and having the love and the pressure of the MCU in the back of their minds being over all things, including the comics, I think really sets up the future for okay, we have this large cohesive thing. We're doing a really good job of it. Meanwhile, our, if you even want to call it that, direct competitor is re-releasing this movie that nobody wanted to, I understand everybody wanted to see the Snyder Cut, but nobody wants to, relive the Justice League. It was not a good movie. I'm sure this new movie may be better, but it's not fucking, Winter Soldier or something. It's not going to be some new classic or whatever.
And it's so extraordinarily long.
And it's shot in this fucking square ratio. Oh, anyways. I love it. He's like, it was supposed to be in IMAX. Yeah, but you understand that it's releasing on people's phones, right? The fuck? Okay, whatever. So, so I think that they're in a really good position, but I think what's cool is somebody in their position, traditionally a company like Disney especially, would be like, well, we got it. You know what I mean? We're just going to, here's Fantastic Four. Instead we've still have at least 2 movies this year. I want to say there's 3. Because I know that Black Widow's coming. And then, is Shang-Chi this year, or is that next year?
I think Shang-Chi is this year.
So
towards the end of the year.
In the summer or something? Because I know Eternals is right at the end of the year.
You're right.
And then
Eternals,
think
Shang-Chi.
Spider-Man is in December or something. I don't remember.
That would go for then.
No, I don't remember I think Spider-Man's out this year. Because we've heard and seen enough about it. We've seen them shooting it and everything, so I don't know if it's out this year. But on top of all of that, you have Falcon and Winter Soldier is coming out after WandaVision's already come out. I think Hawkeye is later this year. And then you've got all these other... You've got a fucking mountain of shit next year and the next year.
Yeah.
And that's not counting stuff that we don't know about. You know what I mean? That's not counting when the fuck is Blade going to fit into this? How the fuck is...
oh gosh, it's going to kill me. And I don't even know if I want to bring it up. There was a mention of something that I'd heard about the Book of Spells and introducing vampires into this. And that's how, yes, and that's how we get into the...
It just seems so early for them to do that, though, because
I
don't think there's, like... Blade was the and another thing at the very end of that announcement last year. I mean, it was really at the very end. He just came out, like, put the fucking hat on, and that was it. And it was like, oh, it's Blade. Oh, wait, what?
Yeah, there's supposed to be an interesting connection between the Book of Spells, Mephisto, and the creation of what we know as vampires.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, you're right. There's a lot on the plate, but Disney's in a good position right now. Kevin Feige and those teams are in a good position where they have things on the back burner because of COVID pushing back everything.
Yes.
So now they're like, well, we can tweak, we can adjust here, maybe we can reshoot if we need to, and organize it and roll it out in a more effective way depending on how things are starting to roll out.
Well, as fans, I think the cool part is it means that Disney Plus, luckily, is not an idea that they're coming up with now.
Yeah.
It was a thing that they were already trying to get going, and now it's luckily here for us to enjoy while having to like avoid, going to the movies and like, looking towards like, we gotta wait until this thing comes out in theaters and then we catch it on DVD. Like now you just get everything, and I think it's fucking awesome.
I think it's great. I do miss the cinematic experience of eating a tub of popcorn and a Coke and drinking a Coke, but
good news, you can do that at home.
Yeah, but the difference.
I know. I want a sticky carpet floor that I'm walking on that's like 50 years old.
Sticky seats.
Yeah. Well, you can go rent out those theaters. You can rent out theaters, and that's getting way more affordable these days.
Yeah, it is.
Well, there you go.
Like $100.
My other question is there anything else that you would want to like make sure happens before the end of this season, before the end of this show? Like, what needs to happen before the end of this show? I mean, we got to see.
We need to have either a introduction or some traces or hints to the big bad in the Doctor Strange movie. I want to see Doctor Strange make an appearance.
Yes.
I want to see Mephisto or Nightmare in some capacity, and.
Do you think the guy in Sword is Mephisto? There's something about his face and the faces he makes. There's just, I can't place it, but he's got kind of like the Rock eyebrow that he tends to do in an almost comical fashion. And every now and then when they show him, when I'm like watching recaps and stuff, I'm like, man, that guy's making a fucking devil face. And they did take him. They did the classic thing of like, hey, here's this guy, we know this guy, and then it was like, he's a bad guy now, and you're like, why is he being such a dick? Like, what's the point of this other than like false conflict? You know what I mean? Like they couldn't have like brought in Sword and set it up and then just be like, Sword has nothing to do with any of this. Like, no, they're not just in the background. What if he's Mephisto and he's been pulling these strings to
I could see him being Mephisto and Pietro being Nightmare. As his little, him doing what he needs to do on the inside.
I mean, that would fit. That would fit really well. Yeah,
that would fit very well, and I think it would play out really well too.
The question to me is, what is the? Because we have to use this term anytime we're doing this in this context. What is the end game here? Like, what the point? Is the point to trigger her into being Scarlet Witch? Is the point? Because remember, I was saying that Ralph is Mephisto, and she wants and he's dead or something, and she wants to use Wanda's power to bring someone back to life, and that's Ralph, and somehow it is.
Or maybe that's how
we
need Wanda in order to bring Mephisto into this realm. Maybe he's having a hard time crossing over, so we need her power in order to get him in a physical state on this world.
Yeah. So like the question about the room that she's in down there with all the doors, like all the doorways, is like those are all doorways to different dimensions. And you, little guy, did some research and discovered what a Nexus being was.
Yes.
And she's in the middle of that room with all the fucking doorways to the different dimensions, and she's the one constant. So maybe she's the one person that can actually like
go
travel
back
between
and forth and bring back specific people.
Maybe.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
I do want Agatha to really assert her role in a more dark and menacing way, just because it's going to add to the allure. It's going to set up the next movie perfectly. It just needs to take a much darker turn than it's going, because I don't want a half-assed attempt at a dark horror movie that's just not very dark and horror-y.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this before, but if anybody can do it, it's Sam motherfucking Raimi.
Yeah.
Like, if Sam Raimi can't make your horror movie good, because that's the thing about Sam Raimi, is he can make a dark, disturbing, stomach churning, what the fuck horror movie, and you still laugh your ass off.
Absolutely.
You still like find it.
And it's very important because we've seen other attempts at making a very dark movie.
Yeah.
We mentioned one earlier, and it was terrible.
Well, that was a special abomination of just terrible production.
Yes.
Like nightmares and shit. And then,
are you worried at all that this next movie has had so many change of hands as far as directors go?
Multiverse of Madness?
Yeah. This is the third director.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Well, wait, no, I did know that.
It has swapped hands several
times. Who was
times.
it originally supposed to be? I feel like I remember that too. Was it James Gunn?
Yes, Gunn was on there.
Who has made some pretty cool... Have you seen Slither?
Yes, I have. I love it.
Michael Rooker?
I love it.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah, no. I don't feel... I'm not worried about it for a couple reasons. One, Benedict Cumberbatch is a fucking horse, man. Like... I don't think he's one to struggle with poor production, because even though it's a legendary show, I feel like Sherlock really suffered from a lot of like inconsistency in quality, and the one constant was Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman were fucking untouchable, and they were perfect through the whole show. So I think Doctor Strange himself is going to be an anchor in this show, in this movie, and then having Wanda in it, even if it's as the antagonist, I think regardless of the quality of like the production, or like maybe if it feels a little chopped up or something like inconsistent, I think it's still going to be a fucking solid performance. So I'm not too worried about it. But I think from your perspective of it wanting to be like a legitimate horror movie in a year where Halloween Kills is coming out, you know what I mean? I think this could be a good year for horror, and I think that would be a good start to it. So, I don't know. I hope so.
I hope the fact that it's changed hands 3 times is a little concerning, but we have some rock solid talent, which is on their shoulders, which they're going to be phenomenal. But we'll see.
Well, I mean, if anybody can do it, I really think that, I think you've got a good team there. And even though the pandemic has been a challenge for production in general, I think that the moving the goalposts back for production has probably helped. In a lot of ways.
What other cameos do you think we're going to see in that
multiverse?
Movie? Yeah, because that movie could get pretty crazy, and just give us slivers of all these like insane things, like the zombie realm or this realm or whatever craziness we want to see.
So like 2 things are coming up that are really making me interested about the multiverse. I don't know shit about the Eternals, so I'm not going to touch that. But obviously, that's kind of to me. Them being like the anchor movie this year, and it being fucking Angelina fucking Jolie and like all the other amazing people in this movie, I think that's kind of like the secret weapon this year. That's going to be making everybody go like, holy shit! Like Guardians of the Galaxy. When Guardians of the Galaxy came out, I don't remember what else came out that year, but everyone was like, and now we got Guardians of the Galaxy, and then that turned out to be like everybody's favorite movie.
Yeah.
But that aside, there's 2 things that are coming out after Multiverse that make me really interested, and one is the What If series.
Yes.
So the What If animated series, What If has always like notoriously been non-canonical. This is just What If shit, so we can use this excuse to make
fun.
Yeah, like make Agent Carter fucking Captain America or Captain Britain or whatever. So like I think What If, you mentioned zombies. They've like Captain America as a zombie is confirmed to be one of the What If stories. So like. That is a neat nod that we could maybe see foreshadowed in Multiverse. But all of the rumors about what the fuck the next Spider-Man's going to be and who all is going to be in it,
but don't we have it confirmed that the other 2 Spider-Mans are going to be part of it?
Tom Holland recently was quoted. I didn't go in and look at the thing, but there was like a headline last week. Tom Holland quotes Tobey Maguire are not in the fucking movie. And
I had read that
what?
Tobey Maguire was a pain to work with.
Well,
I read an article where he was just being a pain on set.
Well, of course, man.
I feel like, we know who to trust, but with Doctor Strange touching in this multitude of multiverse, right?
Yeah.
And then we had the super successful animated show.
In Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse, which is phenomenal.
Which I can't fucking wait for a sequel to that. I think it's confirmed that there will be a sequel at some point for that. I mean, I can't wait for that shit.
So Spider-Man also delving into that space of the multiverse makes sense, especially with this next movie coming out with Doctor Strange.
And that's what I'm saying.
We're going to be very comfortable with this.
I think Doctor Strange I think the fact that every single day you're not seeing headlines of like who's going to be in Doctor Strange, for it to probably be one that's going to be a bit of a sleeper hit, just like Black Widow. I mean, I know Black Widow's big. I know Scarlett Johansson, everybody loves her and stuff. But like this movie, you already know going in that that's one of the reasons they put this shit off for so long. It's not Captain America. It's not the Hulk. It's not, it's Black fucking Widow. So like, even the fact that one of the main guys in it is the dude from Stranger Things, which like, where the hell is Stranger Things?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like the timing, the window on this movie is a little weird.
They know that the hype and the impact of this movie is not big.
And so the hype is not really huge on it. The hype is massive on Spider-Man.
Correct.
I think it's cool that nobody's asking what the fuck's going on with Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange could, because it's going to be the multiverse, be this massive fucking dude. Do you look at the cast list for the Suicide Squad movie? It's just a book. It's a book of names. It's a fucking like guest list for a wedding or something.
They're like Jason Frick from the Power Rangers. Get him in. Get him in. Get him on.
Every single person. All the persons. Bill Ward is in. Well, how the fuck?
Bill O'Reilly? Get him in.
He's in here.
Cares?
Get let him in. Doesn't matter. Shaq's in this as Steel. And so, like, for them to not be talking about all the people that are going to be in this, I think is super fucking cool. Because I want to see this be just a bunch of little throwaway stuff that I think is, again, we love the detail that they put in these movies. So when they have this one little side thing, you're like, oh,
the ability to take complex things, by the way, and make them so not complex, and people that have no like ends the way we do and are invested, are able to palate it and say, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't feel ham-fisted. It doesn't feel like, why the hell did we go to Wakanda? What does that have to do?
And if they can accomplish that in the Strange movie with all these crazy things going on, I think this is going to be beautiful. Now, enlighten me. What do you know about Kang?
Kang the Conqueror?
Mm-hmm.
So
is he Thanos type of big?
No, he thinks he is.
Okay.
He would say yes. If he was in the room right now, he'd be like, haha, Thanos is my bitch. And then Thanos walks in and he's like, I gotta go. I left my spacecraft running. I don't know a lot of specific stories other than I know that Kang, so this is going to sound funny. When I was like darn near homeless and didn't have a TV or an Xbox or anything like that, I got super into mobile gaming. And if you are a Marvel fan and you want to learn a lot about a lot of different characters you've never fucking heard of, like, what the fuck is Night Thrasher? What the fuck is his name? He looks like if Blade wore a trench coat, because he's cosplaying as like Columbine, but he's got like this black and red motif and he carries a skateboard. That's one of the guys in this game. Like, it's fucking weird. Symbiote Howard the Duck. So like, yeah, Venom, like it's a Venom body, but it's Howard the Duck. Like the Venom body, like half of the Venom body is like a mouth and it opens, and inside the Venom body is Howard the Duck, like piloting this thing. Dude, it's the most ridiculous shit. So Marvel Contest of Champions is a like fighting game, but you collect your champions, and you are fighting against you're fighting against Kang the Conqueror. He's the one, like, at least at the beginning. Yeah. He's the one that's like, I'm the fucking man. I got everybody, and I've got this bad Captain America. He's gonna kick your ass and stuff. And so that's like I want to say when it comes to Battle World and stuff like that, which is like the canonical. This is why we get to have everybody fight each other in space, like thing that Marvel's used for a long time. That could is kind of his like background.
So because this Wanda Vision also ties in Kang with Mephisto.
How? I'm curious.
That's where that article kind of lost me, because I don't know too much about Kang. But it's just Kang being interested in the Nexus beings.
Yeah. Okay.
For the fact that they can do that traveling that only they can do between different dimensions.
I think that's kind of his thing.
And it ties into the Eternals quite well. Yeah. Like if we start seeing Kang in the fashion like we did with Thanos, where we saw his hand and he's just talking in the background, and like at the end credit scene, right?
You know what's funny to me about that? Because and I only like, this could just be my perspective, but I feel like Kang is a bit of a chode. His design has always been kind of like comically 70s corny. Yeah. Fucking. Thanos did too. I mean, like, everybody looked stupid back then, but he still looks stupid. And it's funny because I feel like Kang is presented as this big bad, a lot like MODOK. So in the Avengers game, MODOK's the big bad. And MODOK is this giant fucking head, like robot thing. He's a floating giant head, and he's like Brainiac. He's like super, super, super smart, and that's his thing, is he's like mad at everybody for not being as smart as him. And but he's an idiot. He's always the fucking like punching bag of whatever is happening. He'll do stuff that you're like, oh no, but at the same time, as a reader and as a fan, you're like, yeah, but look at this guy. He looks like a fucking moron. So I think it would be kind of funny if he was the big bad in some way, at least maybe just for this Doctor Strange thing.
Yeah.
Because, like, in my mind, somebody like Nightmare and Mephisto would rip that guy to shreds. I don't know. Just and also, if you look at how they handled Dormammu.
That's what
like, dude, Dormammu is such
what I
a
was
fucking
thinking about
massive
in my background
threat, and you're just like, man, we bored him, we upset him, so he was like, no, stop it.
That's what was a little sad to me, because in the article that I was reading about the Book of Spells and that what was being in the basement of Agatha's house, that's who created that book, was Dormammu.
Nice.
So the way they handled him in that Doctor Strange movie was a little upsetting.
They didn't exactly kill him. I mean, they didn't do anything. They were just like, hey, fuck off. And he did. And then they were like, all right.
It was the best way to downplay his importance, I guess. They did the best job they could, downplaying the importance of how powerful and scary he is in a way that was kind of funny.
One of the theories that I listened to...
They I kept on reading that's kind of... If we do end up seeing Mephisto, that Doctor Strange ends up beating him in a very comical way that way, too. Like... Fine, I can't beat you.
Like tricking him?
Yeah, very clever way.
Yeah. I feel like I've heard that. I feel like I've read something about how Doctor Strange like just basically pissed him off or whatever. The interesting theory that I heard going into Infinity War that I didn't realize, I mean, obviously, especially right around then, I was kind of like, man, this stuff's cool, but I wasn't as educated on it, quote unquote, if you want to fucking call it that. And one of the interesting things was, if you look at the previous movies leading up to Infinity War, the whole point was introducing and then relegating people that could be not a threat to Thanos, but like stop Thanos, or at least get in his fucking way and be like, no, we see what you're doing here. You got to stop, bro. Like, getting way too powerful. And that's Ego from Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I mean, he's a fucking living planet. Like, had to get rid of him. And then the fact that they had already established that Star-Lord was so powerful, they had to depower Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is a really important movie because it also sets up Adam Warlock. We'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
But then Dormammu and Hela, like, and Zeus, or not Zeus, man, and then fucking Zeus showed up. No, Odin, like canning Odin and Hela, and then fucking what's his nuts, the Collector. They didn't really can him, but like just kind of like going like, and here's this, but moving on. So he's got enough to deal with now. So like just kind of introducing people like Howard the Duck, and then just being like, all right, we're gonna put them over to the side. They're way too powerful. Howard the Duck's way too powerful. We gotta put them over here. And so you have this like setting the table for this big bad. When you talk about Kang and you talk about, you know, Fing Fang Foom, which is a famous Daredevil bad guy, which is a fucking actual dragon. And you talk about the Iron Fist and the what's his name? I just said it earlier, Shang-Chi. And that is allegedly going to introduce the actual Mandarin, and everything. You have these like super powerful beings, and then I mean the fact that we're even going to have a movie about the Eternals is like, whoa, okay, when does this take place?
I think that being such a wild card being thrown into the Phase 5 part of things, we have to start setting up a really big bad.
So what I think this is doing, and especially like with Mephisto in this case. You're introducing these baddies, and then you're just getting them the fuck out of the way. Yeah, you're like, oh, hey, look at this. You know? And so you're like, all right, so where is this going? And the Secret Wars idea, I think, is a good way to introduce Phase 5, Phase 6, like Marvel and stuff like that. My like telescope look at this is obviously Fantastic Four has to do something with Galactus. That would be like the best way to make up for fucking that shit up so hard multiple times.
Yeah.
But I think that introducing everybody and then setting the stage for Avengers versus X-Men. But don't use... I'm reading Avengers versus X-Men, and it's Dark Phoenix, and it's a pain in the ass. Don't use that. Use something else.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how they do that. Like when they did Civil War, it wasn't the same Civil War. Civil War was about fucking registration and shit like that. Like, it wasn't about... It was totally different. So
you know what's interesting too about that guy who... God, I'm blanking right now. On Sword's side, the guy who had that you mentioned his name, had the devil-looking face at times.
Yeah, okay, the like commander guy. Yeah.
Yes, he's got a thing with people, with humans with superhuman powers, right?
He sure does.
So that I liked that because in my head I started thinking like, oh, the Registration Act, the mutant stuff.
Yeah.
Yes,
I really do think that that WandaVision's doing an excellent job of not heavy-handedly, but clearly setting a backdrop for introducing the concept of mutants as this thing. Because
what I think about is when Dr. Rambeau does get out,
sure,
she's no longer just...
Oh, no, hell no.
We know Wanda's
Yeah,
now.
she's going to fly out of the hex.
So, and they're not truly superheroes either, so like, what are they, right? And I think that's when we're going to start seeing the mutants where being thrown around. That's where we're going to start seeing the big fear. I'm like, man, if Wanda can do what she did, and they're going to put it all on her, the blame's going to be completely on her.
Yeah.
The government, that's when we're going to see more introduction of the Civil Registration Act. We're going to find out the scope of how many mutants there really are.
But you can't do Civil War 2. Well, there was a Civil War 2, so whatever. But you can't do Civil War because it's not the Avengers.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But I think this does a great job of setting that, and then having the resentment start resonating is a way to... Because the whole point of the X-Men was an allegory for homophobia and racism from like the 60s and 70s. I mean, that's like the whole point. And then into the 80s with like the AIDS epidemic and everything. And like, so I think that introducing concepts of like people fearing each other and stuff like that, and then just, you're right, like having the blip as the backdrop for why mutants are all of the sudden happening is a fucking genius move. That's the most genius move about this whole thing.
Yes.
Is the blip can be the reason why you can be like, oh, and look now, whoa, this is weird. Like you could just make that the thing. And I think that Avengers vs. X-Men should be the next huge payoff, like, whoa, not Civil War. Civil War was kind of a cool one-off thing.
Yeah.
And they didn't even really fully do it. Nobody died. It wasn't a big deal. Rhodey couldn't walk, and now he can walk again, so who cares? And you're like, all right, this Civil War was a big deal, man. Captain America fucking died. Like, he got shot in the face. Like, okay, whatever.
They're too scared to let people go.
Even though he didn't really die. But whatever. I think that... that's where this has got to be going long term. I'm curious. Okay, so the Infinity Saga was three phases. Do you think Phase 4 sets up a new saga, or is the in between, and then it sets the stage for a new saga to happen?
I think it's going to start the new saga.
Because when we watched Iron Man, if you look at the template, because I mean, what else would you gauge this off of? If you look at the template, the beginning of Phase 1, Hulk, which, I mean, when it first started, that wasn't even the thing. That wasn't even the plan. It was just like, can we see if this, maybe people want to see this? Oh, we want to see this movie? All right, we got a plan. We got a plan now. We got to do this plan. But now that they have a bit of a template here, and you look back at the beginning, and the Hulk and the Iron Man, and then Iron Man 2, and then that's where you're like, oh, Strange, and what the fuck, and, or not Strange, Fury and everybody came in, and then Thor, and then it was, next thing you know, a team-up movie, right? And we know that that's not how this is happening. So what is the connective glue that ties Black Widow, Doctor Strange, Thor, the Eternals, and Spider-Man together? Because I believe that's all Phase 4. Because I don't, off the top of my head, Shang-Chi I know is another movie, but I don't think that's... No, maybe that is next year. Okay, so let's Shang-Chi in there. What the fuck is the connective tissue?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like the Avengers was the connective tissue of the Infinity Saga, period. And granted, when you started getting into movies that were not tied directly to the Avengers introduced the Thanos situation that glue all that together. But you had these Avengers movies that were clearly like 1 led to 2 and 2 led to America. America led to Thor.
Did Ant-Man do that?
Did Ant-Man what?
Have a connective glue to it. Besides the fact that he was Ant-Man, what else was connecting him to those things? Because he was very one-off doing his thing.
First movie, he popped into the Avengers thing and fought Falcon. That was how it tied in the first movie. The second movie literally set up Endgame. Remember?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think.
None of those movies.
The first one.
The closest thing to a movie that honestly felt like it had nothing to do with shit was Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Like Captain Marvel was like, hey, I know you guys are wanting to see Endgame because Infinity War just ended, but remember the 90s? And you're like, what the fuck is this movie? Honestly, that was the... And without... Like, if Nick Fury wasn't in that movie, you could have been like, this wasn't even the plan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But they
Absolutely.
threw Nick Fury in there, and they introduced, like, that's why he got his eye patch. Like, there was just enough.
I think that's what we're going to see. Is just enough type of detail to make some sort of a connection to glue this all together.
So, then my question would be... Are you nervous about hey man, we know X-Men and Fantastic Four are coming, but we know it's going to be a few years before that happens? Like, how do you feel about, do you think the Disney Plus shows are going to tie this together enough for you to give a shit about any of this over the years?
I'm super worried about how they're going to handle that, because this, if you know a little bit about the comics and if you're invested into it in a little more than just from outside of you just watching this as pure entertainment, this show could set up a connection to Reed Richards. It could show a connection to the X-Men. It could show a connection to a few different things that could set us up. But I know they're not going to handle it all in this series. So I am worried about how they're going to handle it. And I don't know. I don't know. I think that I would want to see, if we're going to introduce X-Men, if we're going to introduce Fantastic Four, I need a big movie. And then I can do a series. I need a movie first, and then the series.
So, with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four specifically, those are teams. So far, the team-ups have all been the punchline of origin movies. Do you want to see the Fantastic Four is a family, so they're not really like individual. You're not going to be like, here's how that thing got it. And then here's how Invisible One, like they all got it at the same time, so that's different. But like, X-Men specifically, do you want to see over the course of like 3 or 4 years, here's Gambit's backstory, here's Storm's backstory, here's Rogue's backstory, here's all this stuff.
I like the way Civil War handled the introduction of the specific characters, where they're like pounding around, they find some data of like some meta-human going around, have some crazy stuff going on, and then they go pull him. Like,
Wait, say that again?
So, kind of like with Tony Stark and how he just moseying in onto Spider-Man and be like, hey, what's up, kid? What's going on? And then like brought him in.
Okay.
Same thing with kind of Black Panther, the way he was at like this thing, and then they pulled him in, and we started pulling in people just all fun and giddy.
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
So
I could deal with that.
Movie incorporated all those people because most of those people weren't together already.
And there's a lot of.
I see what you're saying.
It's a really tremendous task to build them up, bring them in like in a big level event where hell, let's just downplay it all. And let's just bring them in fun. Kind of like we would do Civil War. And then from there, boom, then we get the more deeper backstories, the movies, the series, So I can see them being brought in because we need to bring them in. And we know that we have some people running around with some tremendously insane powers. And that's how you start introducing everybody. I'd love to see that.
So there's one other... I'm trying to think where it's at. So I'm looking like at what's considered Phase 4. Well, this says Fantastic Four confirmed. Yeah, that's not confirmed Phase 4. I don't even think that's confirmed that it's like, other than, yeah, we'll do that at some point.
Yeah.
One thing that we haven't talked about here as far as how to bring things together is Loki. The Loki show is this multiverse cop show thing. So remember we talked about like extra dimensional cops, basically.
Yes.
I think that could be a good way to kind of like tie a lot of these disparate, because when you look at it, just like this seems all over the place,
Yeah.
You've got Eternals, Black Widow, completely unrelated. You've got Shang-Chi and Thor, pretty unrelated, most likely. And then you've got Doctor Strange and the other shows like Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Hawkeye, which I'm assuming those are probably not going to touch on each other too much.
I love how, like, the original rollout, we had Black Widow and then Eternals and then Wanda Vision.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And now we have...
Because Black Widow and Eternals was supposed to be last year. Like, that was, like, the two things that happened last year, and then none of that happened. So, you know, having WandaVision at this point still feels like a great way to kick things off.
I think that next time we sit down and have a conversation, I think we should do a full dive of what Phase 4
should look like.
Yeah, sure. Yes, and we'll talk about the details. But, man, another great sit down and opportunity to chit-chat with you, man. This is
we got a fat one here.
Yeah.
That was good. Look, man, it was 2 weeks worth of, basically 2 weeks worth of, like, man, we need to fucking talk about this stuff. I loved it.
Surviving a winter hailstorm.
Yeah.
And what's kind of crazy is what a day and a half of sun did to erase a week level record breaking.
When you were coming to pick me up, I was just looking around like, there's no snow anywhere. What? Like, I could have swore there was snow this morning. Like,
the day right after we stopped getting snow, things started to melt. And then the next after that, there was no more snow. I drove to Andrews, Texas. Good 2-hour drive.
Yeah.
Nothing. If you would have told me, like, hey, we just had a week level record breaking event, blizzard, I'd be like, where is this?
Like all of Texas got
where?
fucking decimated. And
there's not like, one trace of snow anywhere.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's, it's so dry out here, so it's really easy for that stuff to just move on.
Soaked in.
Yeah.
Much needed gold.
But what are you doing next?
Actually, I want to build a backdrop out of comics.
Oh, you do? Yeah. No, I noticed these. I love these. Got some Spider-Man stuff up here. I love that.
I'm working on a cool backdrop with all the old comics I have.
I need to finish Avengers vs. X-Men, and I'm still plowing through the Marvel, the X-Men animated series. But what I've been doing is watching all the animated Batman movies that I've never watched. So I watched The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2 for the first time. I watched Batman Year One for the first time. I watched Justice League Flashpoint. I've never actually read all of or watched all of any type of Flashpoint stuff, so I don't know what that's about. So I finally watched all that, and now I understand that. And then I am also dipping into watching Hawkeye and The Flash. And honestly, looking at how DC handles their series, like their TV series, they did such a great job with that. And I'm not even there yet. I'm not even to the crossover stuff, like the Infinite Crisis stuff. And I'm really excited about the new, Superman and Lois TV series and everything. That it makes me sad when I think back to the Marvel Netflix TV shows, because they had so much promise. We were also very hyped about them. And then Netflix was like, oh, just kidding. We don't fucking care about any of this. And they just started shit canning the shows. And everybody was like, what's happening? And it's cool because Marvel just got the rights to Luke Cage and the Punisher. Live action production of Luke Cage and the Punisher has just reverted back to Marvel. So now if they wanted to, they could introduce the Punisher.
Real quick question, is the Hulk with Marvel or is it still Universal?
No, it's still Marvel. It's Marvel. It's the Hulk.
Because that's the reason we have not been able to have
No, I'm pretty fucking sure because She-Hulk, I feel like would still fall under that, and there's a She-Hulk movie coming.
I'm gonna do a little diving into that.
I'm pretty sure, because they haven't made another Hulk movie in over 10 years.
Yeah. And the problem was because it was with Universal. It wasn't even with Sony or Fox. It was with Universal, which was weird for them to have the rights.
Did they also have Daredevil and who the fuck made the Daredevil movie?
I'm gonna look into that.
That's what I'm gonna do. Ben Affleck movie.
Outside of the stuff I'm digging into the comics, I'm looking.
I'm pretty sure I watched the first Punisher movie, but I didn't see the sequel. I heard the sequel was
because that's the reason we've seen Hulk in this. He hasn't had his own movie, but he's been a big part of all these other little movies. And so that's why, people are like, well, we're going to do him justice with his arc and everything.
No,
and
he got fucked. Yeah. I can't even get on that because that's a whole topic for me. The way that they fucked Hulk in the movies, especially in Infinity War and Endgame, I was just like, dude, what the fuck?
I'm going to look into it.
I always assumed it was because that would not get, it's not a good idea. I just don't think a Hulk movie is a good idea because the whole point is it's like Jaws. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing is about the looming like thing of this could happen. You know what I mean? Like the threat of this guy hulking out. But then when he does Hulk out, it's the genie out of the bottle. You can't put it back over the course of a movie. So how do you handle that? And short of doing a Thor Ragnarok style, like super crazy version of it, how can you tell a Hulk story, a real personable Hulk story, without it being, I mean, tragic as fuck?
Yeah.
First of all,
I'm gonna look into it.
Okay.
And I'm gonna kind of decipher what's going on there.
Hell yeah.
I'm also gonna do some deboxing of I want an Oxfam.
Deboxing or unboxing?
Unboxing. Sorry, unboxing of a lot of comics that just arrived over the course of last week.
Well,
maybe we can do something live.
You better
like
hand
on
me
camera.
a few next time.
Well, maybe we can do a live unboxing.
Because I'm going to be done with my comics, and I don't have money to buy more right now. So I'm going to be done with Avengers vs. X-Men by then, and I'll be neck deep in watching a bunch of DC stuff. So I'm going to need some more Marvel shit.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
This has been great.
Hell
Hope
yeah,
you guys
man.
enjoyed it. We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much. See you next time.